Read body language. All right, let's get the read from Washington Free Beacon. Liz Harrington, Democratic strategist, Robert Pateo, and American Majority CEO Ned Ryan. Ned, what did you think of all that?
I thought it was great. I think Trump is absolutely right to say, I will shut it down. I'll shut down government. I would argue he should shut down the southern border. I would argue that $5 billion, why are we talking about $5 billion, Neil, when in fact it should be about $25 billion? And I think he should shut it all down until he gets full funding. This is one of the reasons he was elected. And I'm staggered by the hypocrisy. Chuck Schumer sitting there, 2006, he voted for the Yuma sector wall, and now he can barely even tolerate the thought of $1 billion for our southern security. I hope that Democrats push too far on this, Neil, because you're seeing a rise in the poll numbers now. The majority of the American people, regardless of party affiliation, want a southern border wall. And the most interesting statistic I've seen recently, 62% of people want a reduction in legal immigration.
No, I hear where you're coming from, but I don't know if the case is made over a few $1 billion. Believe me, like Edward Dirksen said, you begin to lose count with these money, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. But what I'm wondering about, Liz Harrington, is the difference seems to be over $3 billion, right? I mean, the $5 billion the president wants for this, by the way, which would be just the latest tranche, and what would be $25 billion to Ned's point for a full-fledged wall along the entire border or something like it. But this is over $3 billion, really. The $1.5 or so billion Democrats have already agreed to, the $5 billion the president wants. So is it worth, on either side, making this the cross or the grail for you?
Well, yeah, because this is President Trump's signature issue, and this might be his last chance with a Republican-led House to get it done, at least a big down payment on the wall, which he's been promising since he went down that escalator. But yeah, I think it's really sad in a way, though, that the mainstream media finds it so remarkable and wild to see our political leaders actually engaging in discussion over policy, and they can't really quite handle it over on the other networks. They're so taken aback. They're much more comfortable, I think, on their shallow palace intrigue stories. But here we have a pretty straightforward debate. $5 billion, not that much for something that Chuck Schumer himself has voted for. And I think President Trump is willing to have that fight. And I think it's a much more popular issue with the American people than the media thinks.
Well, it might very well be. And I know how it goes. And the media looking at this, if the president looks belligerent, insisting on something that would risk shutting down the government to get it, you could just as easily argue on the part of the Democrats in that room, equally insisting that he shouldn't get it, risking the same said shutdown. But, Robert, I don't know if this approach and using that as sort of the stick is going to get anyone to see a carrot. You know what I mean?
Well, I think what should have happened today is he should have explained, well, what exactly is the $1.6 billion that Democrats want going to be paying for, and what is the $5 billion the president going to be paying for? As we said, it's a $25 billion wall, so what exactly is $5 billion coming from? Why aren't we using, if we have $5 billion just sitting around, why don't we use that to pay for our homeless veterans? Why don't we use that for educational reform? Why don't we use that for infrastructure? What is this $5 billion going to? And look, President Trump had plenty of slogans and three-word terms to fire up the crowd during the primaries.
Well, they both did. They had a lot of slogans, and I do get worried. But I'm the business guy here, so excuse me for being a nerd, but I'm perfectly open to a commitment, a financial commitment. Where are you going to get the money to pay for that? Because whatever the president's priorities, whatever Democrats' priorities, they've got to come up with money. And we're looking at a $1 trillion deficit, maybe year in and year out for at least the next 4 years, and no one gives that a second thought. Ned, that's what worries me here.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're at, I think, $22 trillion now in our national debt. I think we need to start prioritizing the interests of the American taxpayer. I'm still staggered. I'm not an isolationist at all, Neil, but when we're spending $50 billion a year on foreign aid, we should start just, you know what, let's reduce it by half and build that southern wall. And, coming back to where we're going to get this money and the cost, if we're spending $116 to $134 billion a year already on illegal immigrants coming into the country, $25 billion seems to me to be a pretty small cost, a one-time cost.
Well, then someone's got to come up with a plan.
It could be $1 trillion.
No, here's what I'm just saying, is someone that has got to come up with a plan to say, here's how I'm going to pay for this, here's my priority to pay for this, and not just sort of wish it out of a well, Liz?
We need to have a bigger conversation about the role of government and what we're actually spending.
We never had that bigger conversation.
I know.
But $5 billion is peanuts. I mean, we spend
Careful
$5 billion.
saying that, Liz. Careful saying that.
We spend $5
Everyone
billion on
says it's peanuts because you can afford
intersectionality.
this. It's peanuts to you, and the Democrats argue, well, those aren't peanuts, and then back and forth, Republicans say peanuts. It's nuts.
When have you seen Nancy Pelosi not want to spend our money? I mean, we
I
spend
don't think it's a
$5
Democrat or
billion.
Republican thing. You know what? I think they love to piss away money. Both sides are very good at it, and they exercised it before the American people today. Priorities are one thing. This is another. We'll have a lot more after this. I do want to update you on this French shooting. It's deemed a terrorist.